I'm thrilled to introduce our next speaker for the day. She's the first woman president of HIMSS APAC India, a global nonprofit in healthcare technology, a recipient of accolades from the Chief Minister of Kerala for her exceptional contributions to the startup ecosystem. Annie Mathew is founding board member of Startup Village, which is now Kerala Startup Mission. She's also a Harvard-certified corporate director and member of Women Executives on Boards. Annie currently serves as the Director for Developer Productivity for the Asia region at Microsoft. In her current role, she leads a team of global black belts and is responsible for driving the growth of Microsoft and GitHub developer tools and platforms in Asia. She also spearheads the Code Without Barriers program, which is dedicated to bridging the gender gap in cloud and AI. This initiative focuses on upskilling women within open source communities and connecting them to opportunities with Microsoft's customers and partners. Ma'am, we welcome you on stage today to share your thoughts with us.
Thank you for the kind introduction. Good morning, Kochi. I hope you can still see me behind this podium. Generally, podiums are made for men, so it tends to be high. Well, I'm so proud and happy to be here. When Srijit asked me whether you will travel all the way from Singapore for this event, I said yes in a heartbeat, because it's always an opportunity to connect with our dear developer communities right here in Kerala. And I still think we are the best brains in the world, and there's a lot more we can do, but let's see now what we can do with AI. So this is the era of AI, and every app will be reinvented with AI. New apps will be built that we didn't think was possible. And what's behind this? So for many years now, there has been Moore's law, which said that the number of transistors will double on a chip every year or every 2 years, and at no additional cost. And that meant our ability to process things and create new solutions were going to be drastically different. So that was the norm. But today, in the last decade, we have seen scaling laws are more in play. They are the norm. So if you see the 1.4x of growth that we saw over the previous 2-3 decades have changed. It's just bent the curve with the whole deep neural networks. It is now more than 4x per year. So every month, a new model is being released, or another AI tool is being released, or our capacity on compute as well as on reasoning over this data, the humongous amount of data that's being generated. ONDC is a great example, and as they scale, and applications and platforms like that scale, the amount of data that's being available is also scaling up rapidly. But are we making use of it is a question. The data is good. Data is the new oil. But if we are not making use of that data, then it's useless, right? So that's where AI comes into play. And our capacity and compute and ability to reason is just drastically changing the game. Now, in this era, as a developer, sitting right here, and for all the developers in Kerala, if you're not thinking about AI and not using AI, you're missing the bus, the train, the plane, whatever it is that is taking us, maybe the rocket that's launching us into another era entirely. So how many of you use AI? Just a show of hands? In any way or form? That's great. A lot of you do. How many use AI in your development, in your software development itself? Very few. Okay, some more hands went up. So let's see. By the end of this, I'm hoping that you will discover a new world entirely. So we talk to a lot of customers, and these are some of the top questions that we hear from them. So what does AI really mean? What does it mean across the software development lifecycle? How should we think about it? How do we help our developers? How do we keep security as a top priority? And we know this, right? As data is growing humongously, and AI is the top application that everybody is using or the top skill that everybody is using, security is also creating a lot of vulnerabilities, especially in the open source world where it's hard to keep track of all the open source apps that you are building below the surface that you're not even seeing. What is the security that I should be having to make sure that my code is not exposing stuff, that my portal is not exposing, my app in general is not exposing vulnerabilities? How do we achieve inner sourcing? And this is very core to open source communities, right? And the way open source communities work, you build on each other. It's in inner sourcing. However, if you look inside an enterprise, it's typically siloed projects and siloed developer teams which are working on different projects in different departments, and they're not talking to each other. Probably there are many teams building the same stuff over and over again. And then how do we measure developer productivity? So all these are top of the mind. So today, there are 3 trends that are super important for you and me to note. The first is generative AI itself. And this will significantly alter how we develop code. It's already altering how we live our lives. Yesterday, my sister had a small car accident, and she quickly went into ChatGPT to find out what should I do next. And it said, call this traffic control center number in Trivandrum. And she called. And in 5 minutes, she had 4 police officers talking to her. Otherwise, imagine we would struggle to even find whom to call in that situation, right? So generative AI is kind of overtaking or underpowering everything that we do. And that's the same for design and development of apps. Now, on the other big one is platform engineering. So we all do DevOps, but scaling DevOps is another area altogether. And when you talk about ML ops and AI ops, and things get more complex. So developers today need to understand RAG, and they need to understand models. The data scientists and data engineers, on the other hand, need to understand how to use APIs. So there's a lot more new things that are coming up with the age of AI that developers need to take care of. And security is the other thing. 1.7 million is said by organization using DevSecOps. Now, so the central piece is that, okay, so I use DevOps, but with all this complexity, how do I scale DevOps? And that's where platform engineering comes into play. There's a new role called platform engineer that has come into play, who's actually looking at what can be standardized. So for a developer who's on a new project, it would typically take you in an on-prem world 2-3 weeks to kind of onboard and get everything you need for the project. Today, it's at the click of a button that you have a new cloud PC with everything that you need, all the blueprints that you need for the software development right there. And you don't need to worry about security, but focus on what you do well, which is algorithms and coding. So this is Microsoft's answer to the solution. So if you look at it, we have got something called DevBox with Visual Studio, and you have, if it is not Visual Studio, you have GitHub code spaces. These are workspaces that you can spin up in a minute, in seconds, if you will. And GitHub platform itself, the GitHub Enterprise, GitHub Advanced Security, GitHub Copilot, all of this come together to provide that end-to-end developer tooling that you need. And of course, the deployment environments on Azure and Azure itself, on which you get an end-to-end piece to build your new apps. Now, coming down to a real use case, right here in Kochi, from Kochi. So during COVID, there was this small group of open source enthusiasts who got together and created a COVID war room. That's the one you see on the left, the digital war rooms. That was born during COVID. And I was working with them closely to see how we can help them. That has become a major thing, and now it has kind of expanded into an open healthcare network. So this includes disaster management through war rooms, which is connecting hospitals, beds, emergency, all of that. And then there are tele-ICU systems where doctors and nurses can go to our remotest patients and take care of them. And then, of course, there is AI, Ayushma AI. It's called for the nurses. So AI is underpowering all of this now. It's also declared as a United Nations digital goods. So that's awesome, born out of Kerala. Now, this is how they use GitHub and GitHub Copilot. So there are project boards for planning, doing their end-to-end road mapping and wish list. Doctors who are users of the application are able to file an issue. If they see a feature missing or something that is blocking their use, they can file an issue directly, and it goes into GitHub. Imagine that, a doctor who's not used to any of the software development tools is now able to file an issue, gets picked up by one of the 250 developers who are working on it from the community. This is an open source community-based initiative. 4,000 plus pull requests have been merged, and it runs automated workflows on action. So 15 custom actions per PR are already automated, that runs. And a minimum of 1 approval, and the code review and merge happens. Today, it's a weekly release, and 120 plus releases deployed. Look at the speed and pace of which such a diverse set of developers who don't even report to one person are working together with power on the hands of the doctors who are actually using this and the nurses. So GitHub Copilot was launched in 2020, and they have been using GitHub Copilot right from the start. So there's about 3-4 years worth of their experience. Now, they have claimed 3x development speed, 5x in QA testing, and 10x in documentation. By far, the biggest benefits they found was in testing and documentation. So developers today are not having to write documentation. You can just, on GitHub Copilot chat, you can just give an English version of what you want to create, and then automatically the documentation gets generated. Test, you can ask, I need test sets for this particular project, and it will generate your test results. And another important thing it does is that it does code scanning. It does security scanning, secret scanning on your code. So automatically, when you have pushed a PR, it will automatically also show the reviewer what are the vulnerabilities existing. So this is all being done by GitHub Copilot, which is AI. It is built on the OpenAI framework. Powerful, right? And Bodhish Thomas, we call him Bodhi, lives out of Kochi. So he says this has been his catalyst for increasing the speed. So today it has gone beyond Kerala. It's all over India. It's 50 locations in India and so on. So how did they achieve that in about 18 months? It is a speed at which development is happening. It is a security of the development. And that's powered by GitHub Copilot in this case. Now let's zoom out, and it's Accenture. 6-month study was done in Accenture on the developers' impact of GitHub Copilot. So if you look at this, 90% are saying they're spending less time looking for information. So developers really want to get into the flow, and 90% are saying they're more fulfilled and in the flow. 50% more builds. So what these AI tools actually do is remove the fatigue and repetitive tasks that you need to do, the testing sets, the commenting and all of that. Let AI do that. Let it look for the secrets, let it look for the vulnerabilities in your code, and you focus on what you do best. That's your logic, that's your code. That's how you increase the speed and you have more happy developers working on it, which means for organizations, talent acquisition, talent retention, happier developers, happier, better code, right? So it works all around. And no wonder then that with these results, Gartner very recently released their first Magic Quadrant for AI code assistance. And GitHub is on the far right and on the far top. So it's leading the pack. Now, AI helps across the entire, it's not just a code completion tool, it helps across the entire software development lifecycle. Whether it is to code faster, that's the code suggestions, or to migrate code. You often have, say somebody has written COBOL code and you don't know how to read COBOL at all, let alone migrate it. So this is what Copilot can help you with. It helps the junior developers actually understand what an existing code means, what is the logic. So they learn faster. For a senior developer, they get to code faster and they get to guide the junior developers faster. So community is important as you learn how to use AI better. Generate use cases, sysadmin scripting. If you have infrastructure as code, you can script everything so it runs automatically. Code to doc and doc to code. It's all across build, test, and deploy. This is now all powered by AI. So what do you have to do Monday morning? Today is a Saturday. I hope you understand the power of AI that is there. And for those who have not tried Monday morning, you need to have your first trials going. Look up GitHub Copilot, get your free trial, start coding on it, see how it works with you. And if you're already using it, you really want GitHub Copilot to be part of your daily tool. Bodhi was telling me yesterday that I can't imagine doing anything without GitHub Copilot now that I'm so used to it. He talks about a 80% code acceptance. Whatever GitHub Copilot is suggesting, 80% of the time he's just able to accept it. And 20% of the time he has to make some tweaks. But that is amazing, amazing power of increasing your developer productivity. So that's it, Kochi. Let's go Monday morning and explore the power of AI. Thank you.